Okay, it looks like we're live. I'm going to bring up closed captioning. Okay, it looks like all right, I think we're ready.
Great, then let's get the meeting started. Call the meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. I think we're at a full house right now of all board members that could be here. We are missing Jeremy, who's not going to be with us tonight, as Scott mentioned a couple minutes ago. I want to welcome everybody and tell you that our goal is to stop board meetings around an hour and 15 minutes. That's really our intended goal. I'll talk as quickly as I can to not take up a lot of time, but there are a few things I need to or want to discuss at this point. One, we had some technical issues last time with Zoom. So if you do happen to get booted out, try and get back in, and Molly will be keeping her eyes open for panelists trying to rejoin if that happens. That's number one. Talk a little bit about virtual meetings. We are at this point planning on going virtual through the end of the calendar year. So the end of December at this point. If anybody has any strong opinions about that, please feel free to send an email and we can just bring it up for a discussion at another board meeting. And then we'll see where we are based on the advisement of the experts as to what we do when we get into the new year. Any comments, questions? Talk a little bit about board vacancies. There, it looks like I mentioned before, it looks like all of the 10 members that are possible to be here are here. We have 2 vacancies. To the best of my knowledge, one is a registered vacancy on the Democrat side and one on the Republican side. If somebody happens to be an independent, they can also apply. They just, we need to have them go through the Madison Republicans or the Madison Democrats, because those are the groups that nominate members on the board. If you have somebody in mind that you think would be a really great addition to the team, I would really encourage you to reach out to them and have them reach out to the Madison Republicans. Both their websites, I Googled it, they come right up if you haven't done it already, but they're very, very easy to find. And that's the process we go through. Scott, am I missing anything on that?
No, it's just the process. You have to apply, and the process eventually goes through. You get nominated and goes to the selectman's office.
We are also, so the 2 people that we're looking for, we're both executive committee members too. So we mentioned it last time. If you are interested, we would love to hear from you. Send me a note, send Scott a note, and copy the other one, and so that we can move forward with that. We haven't done anything because we were waiting to get official resignations, which at this point we have. So we would like to get 2 people onto the executive committee. I know Rob had mentioned an interest in that. And if anybody else is interested, that would be terrific. Usually we ask you to serve for a year on the general board. But at this point, if you're interested and you haven't served for a year, send us your name as well. Just a super short email. Just it's important that we do get a little bit more membership there. Otherwise, it's just Andrea, myself, and Scott, and it gets boring really quickly. But it's a really great opportunity. It's 1 extra hour of your life, sometimes an hour and 15 minutes once a month. And it does give you a really different insight into the board and into the workings of MYFS. And so I strongly recommend it. And we'll talk a little bit about that, about how else you can get involved in board activities. So there was an activity this past month, Finding Hope, and I didn't go. And I didn't go because I totally forgot that it was happening. But it turns out that I wasn't alone. Nobody from the board did go. And it is one of the ways that we can support Madison Youth and Family Services is to go and to take part in one or more of the events that they have scheduled. It's a great way to connect with some of the staff members in a way that is different than we're going to connect with Erin and Taylor later today. And it also is a great way to show your support. So I would encourage you to do it. It is, this is a voluntary board, and you do get to pick how you're going to be involved in the board and to what level you want to be involved. But it is a very easy way for you to step it up just a tiny little bit, pick one activity that you want to be in, and it goes a long way, I can tell you that. Any comments on that? Okay. My apologies to MYFS members that are here today for not showing up at that meeting. And we do have an opportunity that Scott's going to talk about to support their activities in just a couple of weeks. So I'll leave that for Scott in a little bit. I think that's enough. I think that's all that I've got right now. So at this point, I'm going to ask Molly if we have any citizens' comments.
No citizens' comments.
Okay, then I'm going to ask, or bring the next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the September meeting. And I'm going to ask for a motion that we approve the minutes. Rob, and do I have a second? Andrea, is there any discussion? All right, I know not everybody was here, so we'll do in favor, opposed, and we'll do abstentions. All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, so the motion carries. Minutes are approved. And Molly, when you catch back up to us, we're up to correspondence.
Yeah, I don't have any correspondence either.
We're moving right along.
Mhm.
Andrea, it's time for the treasurer's report. I'll go on mute.
Good evening, everybody. We have a balance of $160 in the Sunshine Fund, and members may drop off their donations, their voluntary donation, at the Madison Youth and Family Service office. And will someone make a motion to approve a $1,000 donation to GASP from the Madison Diversity and Inclusion Committee? Beth?
So moved or seconded.
Kathleen, was that you seconding?
Yes, it was.
And any discussion?
I just want to quickly express our gratitude to the Madison Diversity and Inclusion Committee, because this is just an incredibly generous donation, and one that we've, I think, put to immediate good use in terms of purchasing a number of T-shirts that we are going to, that GASP is going to be selling as a fundraiser at the Pride Day, which is, I think, is it this weekend, Erin? This coming up? Yeah. Yep.
This Saturday.
And they came in today, so I can share with you.
Oh, no.
So these are available for purchase.
Wow, that's nice.
Yeah, they really are. They really are quite stunning. And the design was Amy Johnson, Erin.
That's awesome.
How much
Yeah,
are
Amy
they?
Johnson designed them.
How much are they, Scott?
20. They're $20.
Yes, $20. I was going to say $19.99, but that would be wrong.
And where do we get them?
Well, you can. They'll be here at the agency. You could also, I mean, Dave, you could probably get them directly from Erin at the school, I would think, right, Erin?
Yeah.
And anyone who's out for this weekend, if you want to visit the Pride Fest, that'll be downtown during the afternoon, Saturday. And you can purchase
From
them.
12 to 5.
Thank you. From 12 to 5.
Can we vote all approving? Raise your hand. Any voting against? And any abstention? Yes. Thank you.
Andrew, you all approve because we've already spent the money.
Andrew, two questions, and feel free to say no to the first one. Can we contribute to Sunshine through Venmo? And if you're not comfortable opening up that can of worms, that's fine.
No, I
Okay.
would like to continue with dropping off at the office, and the lockbox are going into the office and giving them to Molly, if that's okay.
Absolutely. And then the second thing is, let's talk during the week about maybe using some of the funds for Jeremy.
Oh, absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
All right.
That's why we do this.
Nice to use it for a good cause, a happy cause. So, okay. Thank you. I think we're up to our staff presentation. So Scott, I'll let you introduce Aaron and Taylor.
Yeah, so we have our two school-based clinicians with us tonight for their annual presentations. And I just, as a note, programming note, I have been putting together the calendar and thought I had one pretty well figured out, but I did hear that we do need to tweak a couple of presentation nights for our staff. Really glad for tonight to have Aaron and Taylor on board. They'll tell you a little bit about what's going on at both the schools that they cover. So Aaron is our school-based clinician at Daniel Hand High School, and Taylor is the same position at Polson. So I don't know if there's who drew the short straw to go first. Aaron, you wanna take it out the gate as our senior member?
Sure, because I don't think Taylor and I did draw straws.
No.
We could have Taylor in the parking lot on our way out. So, as Scott said, I'm Erin Corbett. I have been at Youth and Family. This is the start of my 17th school year at Hand, but I was an intern the year before that. So, I've been around a while. And so, basically what my basic job entails is that I see kids, mostly regular ed kids. I do see a handful of special ed students, but mostly regular ed students who, for whatever reason, are referred to me for support. Some people are referred by their parents, some people by the school, some by other clinicians, and some students find me on their own or by their peers. And, I see people weekly to bi-weekly generally, or, I have some students who I check in with once a month or so. And right now I have a caseload of about 35 to 40 in the school. And then I have a small caseload outside of the school in our clinic. I only actually have three three clinic kids right now. But I also supervise two contractual clinicians and an intern. And then as part of my job at the school, I sit on the SST committee, and we meet, they're revamping SST. So we meet kind of bi-weekly, with the weeks in between being to talk about specific cases. So in those cases, you're invited to a meeting based on the need for the people, whoever needs to be at the meeting. I also help facilitate some activities for Wellness Wednesday. Lindsay Fandela and I try to have some activity every week for Wellness Wednesday. I will admit that we don't have one for tomorrow, but sometimes we come up with something really quick in a pinch. Last week it was Mental Illness Awareness Week, and so we did a mental health walk, and we passed out candy with little slips attached to them that had a QR code to, oh my gosh, why am I forgetting what it's called now? But to a mindfulness app, but I'm like really blanking on the name of the mindfulness app right now. And then with also information for suicide hotlines, ways to call, text, and connect online. And students really appreciated that. They actually, all the ones that were attached to candy went, and some of the slips that hadn't gotten attached to candy yet also went. So I think that was really positive. We also have done a scavenger hunt, which was not as, we were way more enthusiastic about the scavenger hunt than the students were. But anyway, so that's part of what I also do at the school. I also teach teach gender and sexuality in the 9th grade health classes. I'll be doing that next week. So it's a 2-day lesson, which there's 4 classes this trimester, so it's going to take up like my whole day. But so I do that as well, and I also run GAS, which is the Gender and Sexualities program. GAS has been pretty busy this year so far. We will be at the Pride Fest on Saturday, and we'll be selling t-shirts. We'll also have our buttons that we've made that'll be like for donation, as well as some cards that Sharon had made up that have the same tiger on it that Scott just showed on the t-shirt. And then like, yeah, Scott has the card. Thanks, Scott. And on the back of the card is services that Madison Youth and Family Services provides. You can't read it from the screen because it's yellow. But hopefully people will be able to read it really well in person. And we also did, we got gift cards for all the custodians for Custodian Appreciation Day. This is the 2nd year we've done that. The students in my group feel like it's really important to do because the custodians are often like the unsung heroes of the building. So they got rainbow thank you cards with messages from the students on them. And then last Friday was National Coming Out. Well, actually yesterday was National Coming Out Day, but we didn't have school yesterday. So Friday, which is our normal GAS meeting day, we celebrated National Coming Out Day, and we had an announcement made at the beginning of the day indicating that Monday was National Coming Out Day and encouraging people to be supportive, but then also had students shared their coming out stories, and some adults from the high school and from Youth and Family Services came and shared their coming out story. So I thought that was really positive because, you know, one of the things that is hard for me running GAS is that I am a straight cis female. So like, I don't have a coming out story. And there's only so much that I can relate to the students because I've never been in their shoes. So it's really nice to have some adult role models who, you know, have been in their shoes, come and talk with them. So I guess that's like the basics of what I do.
Okay,
So
so
and in the summer, I run a community service program.
just so you're never bored.
Yeah.
Right.
So and I've asked each of them to give an overview of basically what their job looks like and what they do, and then open it up for the board to ask questions. So really, you're then asking the more about the information that you want to know, getting more details. So we'll kick it over to you, Taylor.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Taylor Scalia. This is my 5th, almost 6th year with Madison Youth and Family. I also interned here. I started my first 2 years at Brown as well. So I split my time, and now I'm fully at Polson for the last 3 years since the school reconfigurations. Just like Erin, I typically do a lot of one-on-one counseling with regular ed students. I do see students with other supports or accommodations in the classrooms. I will do some group work, maybe during lunchtime or their Pride time, which is their 20-minute study hall that each student gets. And I not only do lunch groups, but last year, one of the highlights at Polson is that we were able to start a GSA, a Gender Sexualities Alliance, which was fantastic. It was very end of the school year, but it was something that was discussed and needed amongst the student population. And it turned out to be a really big hit. And the students were able to find a place that was supportive and inclusive. And we rolled it back out again this year with, making sure that this new 6th graders were involved. And man, is it just a lot of fun. Last year, I co-facilitated with one of the guidance counselors and within the guidance department. And this year, I'm co-facilitating with Justin Ziegler, who's one of our new positive youth development coordinators. So it's really great to be able to work alongside, whether it's the community at Polson or with our staff here at Madison Youth. And so similar to what Aaron was talking about in our GSA, we had rolled out a National Coming Out Day announcement this morning to honor that with the students. And it's great to be able to show that and have that visibility at Polson. I collaborated with the Diversity Club facilitator, who's Crystal Procaccini. And together, I want to say it was about 2 weeks now, we put together a very brief slideshow for the Polson staff. And it was related to safe space stickers that were given to us through the GASP group. And the safe space stickers, I don't have a picture of them, but it essentially has, rainbow colors. It says a safe space on it, and it acknowledges the role that it can be put on teachers' doors or in classroom windows to acknowledge that teachers are available as supports to any LGBTQIA plus students in the building. And it's a place that they can go to feel trusted or have a trusted conversation. And so we rolled out through this presentation what this means and what the role would be, that if you have a safe space sticker. And I want to say we've had, I don't know how many stickers we had, but I look around the school and a majority of doors have them on there. We also had so all of our data came from GLSEN, which is the Gay Lesbian Student Education Network. So it's all online, the resources that they do for a safe space program. So we took all this information and we also provided the teachers with packets, which a lot of packets went so teachers could learn more about what they could do to support LGBTQIA youth. So we've had a very big jump start this school year with the GSA. I also run within the school, I do the Who's Got the Power anti-bullying lessons within the 6th grade health classes. So that's been a really great opportunity to meet with them. In 7th grade this year, we're wrapping up some sexual harassment presentations for the 7th grade, and I'm collaborating with Charlene Doan, who's the guidance counselor. And then in January, Peggy Butler and I host the Allies 6th grade leadership group. So it's kind of a smaller version of peer helpers at Polson and peer advocates at Daniel Hand. I'm trying to think of what else may or may not come up on my plate. I kind of just I'm all over the place with little things. My caseload, just like Aaron was saying, it's not as full as this year because I'm pretty much starting fresh. Aaron got a lot of my students that I had last year. So I'm starting fresh this year, building on my caseload. I do see students outside of school as well. And this summer was a nice big opportunity to run a pilot program with the parent support counselor, Frankie Esposito. And together we ran 2 to 3 different youth groups, and they were social support groups for children's age like 5. Our youngest was 5, all the way up to 17. So we hosted in different age levels, ways that they can work on social skills and emotional regulation skills through a specific curriculum. So that was a great pilot program, and we hope to do it again next year or next summer. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I've forgotten. I'm just all over the place at Polson. And I have my therapy dog, Ruby, who joins me, which has been a big hit with a lot of the students here, especially pre-pandemic is when we first started as a trained therapy dog team. And that slowed us down last year, but the students really love to see her. And I think it really helps when they know that there's this other level of support that's really different and really special. So that helps those students there. And Derek Cornwell used to be in charge of helping coordinate therapy dog teams through Hand and even along the shoreline. So he was able to set me up with some contact information so I can continue to be that partner, that co-partner along the shoreline and even with Hand when they need therapy dog teams. So that's a lot of what I do.
Thank you, Taylor, and thank you both. And I just, it's always it's always interesting to me to hear, particularly these two talk about like what they do, because it really is a really good example of the clinical work that gets done through Madison Youth and Family Services. So, if you can think about what might be sort of the stereotypical office-based therapist, and we have people here that are very good office-based therapists, and not to say that is or isn't anything that's good. It is very good. The folks that work here are not just involved in what happens within the confines of a session or an office. We expect and really benefit from, our clinical people being involved in every aspect of what we do. So you have, these two doing a lot of really good individual work, but also running groups, running youth development groups, support groups, and really being creative in terms of how they meet new needs. So we're very lucky to have two folks like these two here, and it's certainly been an interesting year, continues to be. I accidentally talked about the pandemic like it was last year, and Aaron pointed out it's not last year. It's it's still very much impacting everything we do, which obviously I think I'm just in a bit of a denial some days. If there are questions for either one of them in terms of what they do, if you have questions, please, now's the time to raise your hand and ask.
Go ahead, Beth.
I guess I'm interested on both of their perspectives of what they think is missing or where the gaps are, either from what the kids need or from what you're hearing from staff and teachers or from parents. What's, of all the things that you guys are doing and Youth and Family Services is doing in general, what's not happening that could be in a perfect world? No budget constraints, no time constraints, whatever.
I don't know if it's like if it's something that's not happening, because I think like people are trying to do everything, but I think areas that we could do more in are sexual assault awareness and training. This is a discussion that we've been having at Youth and Family a lot, but like for everyone, for kids, like, younger kids, about, consent and, body positivity, and for parents. So parents know what, their role is, especially parents of parents of kids of any age, anyone who is a parent, all the way up. So I think that's an area, as well as something that I think we've been trying to focus on a lot, but you guys will learn later on, or maybe you already know, Amy Zalusha, who's a new staff, is working on mindfulness with younger kids. And I think that's really great. I wish that was done with the kids who are in high school when they were younger, because I think one of the areas that is really difficult is kids not knowing how to have self-care for themselves. We talk a lot about self-care in general, but I don't know that students really know what that is. And if they develop healthy self-care as a second grader, it's going to be way easier. And then, if ending the stigma of that it's okay to talk to somebody, there are some kids have no stigma. There are kids who come up to me in the hallway and share way too much information in the middle of the hallway, and other kids who would never want to acknowledge that they know me outside of my office. So I would say that was a lot, but those are the things.
I would agree. Yeah. And I would agree with Aaron, because Beth, I know you and I have had, pre-COVID, we've had conversations after PTO meetings about making sure that curriculum, not only is it happening in one grade, but how do we continue that on through other grades? So I know we have talked about that as well. And the guidance department really revamped their sexual harassment lesson. And it was one of my first years, because I didn't help co-facilitate it last year, but and it was really great to see that consent was really highlighted in all the different ways of reporting and making sure that students have an opportunity to know trusted adults in the building. And so
Right.
it was a good presentation to have to begin with, but I think it was really great the highlight of consent, as Erin was talking about, being able to discuss and highlight those more. And not that there's a gap, but I think we absolutely continue suicide prevention. In my position within the school, I've noticed trends of depression increasing, whether that's like post-COVID, because it's not post-COVID, but you know, like where that is, you know, making sure that students understand the responsibility of that it's not on their shoulders, and that to give that to an adult, and making sure that this is really an important topic, and coming forward and talking about it is just as important as going to the doctors for something else.
Right.
So I want to continue working on that suicide prevention piece, as you know, not only do Erin and I do some natural therapy and, you know, anxiety, or, you know, we look at other things, but we could also at times be crisis interventionists. And it's a really intense part of our job that we handle. And, you know, it's a very serious part of our collaboration and our case management. So the more that we get trainings around that, and the more that staff know that they can come to us for those kinds of things, and especially the students. And so I want to highlight that self-care piece of it, because a lot of these things are heavy, and not all teachers and staff have all the answers. And sometimes, you know, as us as the support staff too, we have to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves so that we can help take care of the students. So
Right.
um,
Thank you, both of you. That was really helpful. Thank you for all you're doing.
of
And a good
course.
question, Beth. Thank you.
I also want to thank you both for what you're doing, and I do have a question. Are you noticing anything that the teachers and parents would want to be aware of in terms of trends in mental health, either because of the pandemic, because of, you know, we're now back in school and we're not in the hybrid model? Is there anything you're noticing that we wouldn't necessarily be aware of from your workloads?
I think it's a little bit of both, because I think we're still seeing some students with that lingering of mental health issues, but I'm also seeing kids really enjoying themselves being back in the cafeteria. At Polson, the students were strictly cohorted last year to just their classrooms and specific students. This year, I'm seeing a lot more of the students being able to socialize and be around one another and be able to have those opportunities. So yes, like there are, like, what do parents know or need to know, but I am seeing that ability for students to be able to just have some flexibility, and I think they really need that at our level at Polson. So, and social media use maybe is one thing that parents should know about. Just continue to monitoring social media use, because the more screen time, the more concerns I would have about isolation, lack of interest in activities they used to be. So maybe social media use, and a lot of those, some of those uncertain social media apps that they could be using to talk to basically maybe people that they shouldn't be.
I would, sorry, I keep hitting buttons wrong. I would say that, you know, it's still, I think one of the areas, like Scott said, that he said that the pandemic was a year ago. I think that's actually an area of concern, like, not to call you out, Scott, but I think kids think that too, or students think that too, and then it's not. And so we're gonna still see a lot of impacts on depression and anxiety related to the pandemic, some from the trying to figure out how to reintegrate back into the world, and some because the world keeps changing, like the rules keep changing. And I think that that's really hard. I mean, it's hard as an adult, like to not know like what the rules are going to be, you know, next week. But I think it's much harder as a 17-year-old, and or, you know, any age, as a teenager or a young person, especially, you know, if some people's parents or families have different restrictions because of COVID than other people. So I don't know that it's something that people aren't aware of. Like, I just think people really need to keep being reminded that it's not over, and because it's not over, the mental stresses from the pandemic are continuing. I mean, there are still very, very long waits to get a bed on a adolescent psych ward because they're still overflowing. Sometimes people are in the ER for 5 days until a bed opens up. So, there's still a lot. I've shared this with the staff at youth services several times, but I act as the mental health person at my daughter's summer camp, which has normally just been this like easy job that I do because I don't actually do anything. But this year I had to do a lot. I've never had to go meet with someone before, and I had to go at least twice a week, every week this summer. And it was mostly to meet with like the young counselors who are just struggling to like figure out like how to manage in this new world when they're used to being isolated. So I think it's, again, not something that people aren't aware of, just that they need to be more aware.
Thank you.
Well said, Aaron.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Well, thank you guys again for all that you do for us. I get to see Erin frequently enough that I can thank her in person, but Taylor, I don't usually get to see you, so thank you. Everybody's clapping. You can't hear them, but. Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you. I forgot something, but I do because I haven't had to do it very much recently. But I run if kids get in trouble for substance abuse, I do a drug and alcohol program with them. It's part of the curriculum. Luckily, I don't know, luckily, or I'm not really sure what, but since the pandemic, I've only had to have one student in the program. So like, that's why it slipped my mind. There are some years where I've had many, so it's on the forefront of my brain. But anyway.
Thanks very much.
That's an important thing I do that I've neglected.
As always, you are more than welcome to stay, but judging from how busy you are during the day, you're also very welcome to go do something else.
Thank you, everyone. See you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
All right, it's time for Darian and Rebe to give us a student report, and I'll go back on mute and let you guys take over.
Awesome. So just wanted to start off with the pilot that I was able to do with the football team. So I got all the players sat in the bleachers and I talked to them and I addressed a couple of certain points. I'm going to just go over them now. The fact that there are no excuses and people shouldn't say, well, I'm not a rapist, so I'm not a part of the problem. That's a really big issue, especially in high school, people trying to avoid the conversation. Made sure to mention the dangers of the gray area, how in relationships you need to know boundaries and how a yes in the past isn't always a yes in the future. And then also substances, because if any substance is involved, regardless of how much or how little, it's obviously a no. And then also mentioned bystander intervention and how one person stepping in can have a lasting impact on others' lives. Then Coach Becker got up and talked about a close friend he had in college that was sadly raped and how it impacted not only her life, but his as well. After that, I was able to read Coach Becker's pledge, and then we hung it up in the locker room and the players signed it. So after I read out the speech, I mentioned a Girls United meeting that was being held the next day in the library, which was just a conversation on sexual harassment and sexual assault, and hoping to get more guys there. Also, along with that, we're setting up a second meeting with Saeed, Terry, Becker, and Katie soon to hopefully find the next step in this process. But on to that Girls United meeting. Sadly, only me and another friend, Matt Rossi, were the only two male students in the group that attended. But plain and simple, for me, it was very impactful. It was crazy to hear the amount of harassment that some of these young ladies have to go through in and out of school. I'm going to let Rebe say more on that. I don't know if she had anything to say.
Yeah, Dara, I think that's so good. Hi, guys, by the way. But yeah, so I think agreeing with Darian, of course, that it was a little bit disappointing just to see that there was 2 guys at the meeting, but 2 guys is something. I do think, though, that he's right. It's absolutely crazy to see that on a daily basis, there are just little things that are that happen all the time. And I think Darian and Matt were so good in that meeting of being so honest and being like, we had no clue that they kept saying like, oh my gosh, we had no clue that this was a thing. And just to be so open is really like a privilege for us, because it really goes to show how guys, even who aren't involved in any of this, really just don't have a lot of awareness about what the girls go through. And so when you don't have awareness on a topic, I think it's sometimes hard to empathize with it. And so I think what kind of the focus for the Girls United meeting, and I'm a member of that club as well, was really just to, and I was talking about this with Scott and Darian too, it's not to accuse the guys. It is mainly just to bring awareness and light to the topic so that when people know about it, they can understand it and then they can empathize with it, which is a really, really important thing. So yeah, that's what I have to say about the Girls United meeting.
One other thing is that when I was working with Katie on the pledge, I was honestly thinking a lot about sexual assault. I had heard about a couple of cases that had gone into the school, but I really completely undermined the amount of sexual harassment. So that's something that we'll definitely be interpreting into the rest of the pilot, or not the pilot, but the project to make it a little bit better. On to the next. With Valor, I was able to meet with Crystal and Catherine today. They had a great idea of doing a recruitment carnival, super loose way of introducing people into the group, into our mission, and that will be set for November 1st. So we're going to get as many people there as we can. School, still a little bit overwhelming, going from doing half the work last year to a full schedule this year is something to adjust to, like I said last meeting. But one thing I'm really enjoying is the out of school events, like all the sports games, having student sections. It's Hand has such a great sports community. Like all the teams are great and everybody goes out to support each other, and it's really great to see. I've been able to make it to a couple of girls and boys soccer games, and I always have so much fun at those. It's really cool to see the whole community rally, see teachers there and everything.
To Dara's point about just to add on to that, Dara, about the team thing, I think it's so great that not to be redundant in what he said, but I think it is so great that we see this increase on the student section, because I think people undermine how important that is, even if it's just it's not even so much as just watching the game, but just like kind of the energy in the student section and kind of feeling like in unison that we're getting back to normal and getting on our feet again as a unified student body, even with the mass situation. And so I think with the help of all these sports games outside of school, that really does, as far as the atmosphere inside of school, that translates very nicely over to kind of internally school life, because yes, we still have mass and this whole situation, but there's a drastic social change between just feeling so comfortable and everything with it's not really interfering as much, at least in my opinion, with learning or anything. And the teachers have been incredibly supportive too in that. And even after school and everything, they've been very open with their hours. So as far as actually interfering with like learning and comprehension and all that stuff, it hasn't been too bad. It's been pretty good. So yeah.
Next, we got our meeting with Terry set up, so that'll be happening monthly. I'll give you updates. Our first one is November 8th. And then last but not least, it is a survey year, and it is coming pretty quickly. We only got a couple of weeks until the survey comes out. We had a couple of worries about it, like teacher delivery. We had a survey a couple of weeks ago. I'm not sure exactly who it was for. I think it was for the school, something that they had to do. But we kind of got, at least in my experience, the teachers always kind of for the surveys are like, yeah, like, the drill, get on your computer, the links in your email, do it. And then whatever time you have left is free time. You can do whatever, you can go on your phone. But we really want to make sure that, with the survey as important to this, coming out of such a strange couple of years where young people can really be affected by it, we want to make sure that, the importance of this is stressed. And we want to make sure that people know it's anonymous. Those are the 2 points that we really want to hit. But a great idea that Scott and Catherine had is to have them come in to school, come into our Tiger Talk class, which is our Friday morning news, and have them be a part of the video, and basically have them have a certain part or a certain skit. We haven't had any exact meeting on it or how we're going to do it, but to allow them, important people from Madison Youth and Family Services, basically say, hey, we're getting none of this information. We get the statistics, but we're not getting any names. And I think that's really important for the students to hear. Having it come from a teacher, taking a survey on your school computer, you may not feel that safe, but having it come from Scott and Catherine, I think would ultimately be very important for the students to hear.
Just keep in mind that's October 27th is the actual assembly where the PAW group where we're going to do that, which would mean it would have to be the Friday before that.
Yeah, gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. And then, yeah, one more thing too. When Darian and Scott and I were talking about kind of this Tiger Talk video, I think our aim was also to like what's the point of doing it? It's not even just to express confidentiality, but it's also to empower the students and be like, hey, like these surveys actually matter. Your voice, sorry to sound cliche, but it actually does matter. I feel like someone is really less passionate about doing something if they feel like they're just a number on a board, you know what I'm saying? But with this video, we really want to get the point across, and it's so sweet of Scott and everyone to come over and do this, but we really want to get the point across that you're more than just a statistic. Like this is actually leading to things that change in the social community and things that will affect you. And that's definitely something that we wanted to translate, kind of like that your voice is very important. And so definitely take this seriously, and the teachers need to take it seriously as well.
That's all we have for you guys. Thank you for listening again.
I'll just
Thanks,
jump
guys.
on. And great job to our students. And I'll talk a little bit more about the survey in a minute, but we heard very clearly the feedback following the last survey 2 years ago. There was a number of students that said this, and I think a number of adults heard this from students as well, that their sense of the survey, in other words, that they were accessing the survey online from their own laptops or their own IP addresses, impacted how they answered some of the questions on the survey, and really having no way to go and verify that. Oftentimes we know that what we do or what we present outwardly, especially when we're teenagers, may be different than what we really feel inside, or what we do, or how we, they don't always match. So we felt that coming into this survey that we were going to really go out of our way to emphasize the reason for the survey, the confidentiality, privacy, that's the protections that we have for individual students, and really bring it home in terms of why and how the survey helps everybody. And now we can't control everything that people think about surveys, and we are actually living in a time where data is always a question, the safety of data. And so we know that we're kind of coming at this at a time where that's a natural and I think an important question for all of us. We feel good about the survey. We feel good about how we're conducting it and who's conducting it. And we just need to get that message across better to students than we have in the past. And I'm hoping we can, get the assistance of youth like Rebe and Darian to help us on that message. Darian mentioned homeroom news, and we're excited to be a part of that if that happens. And short of that, one thing we know we are going to do for sure is to tape a video introduction on the day that'll air at the time of the survey. So they will hear us speaking very directly to the purpose of the survey and all the protections that we have inside. And as Rebe said, to empower students that this is, a survey that really is theirs. It's their story, it's their data, accessible to them, by them, as easily as they can get on our webpage. And it does, I think, for students, allow them to answer a question if they think, if they are in their judgment or in their perception, for example, everybody is vaping, it gives them an opportunity and a place to go to see exactly what everybody means, so there'll be a number in the survey. And we are doing 2 surveys. It's the Search Institute survey. It's the same one we've done, I want to say, since 2004. So that one we've done every 2 years, and it's been consistent. And then we've added a very short addendum The addendum we craft, usually the same questions or similar questions that we find are very important to track over time, and the ones that we feel are incredibly important for the time in which the survey is being done. We are asking very directly if students have experienced a sexual assault. We're asking if students have experienced sexual harassment, and we're asking if students have experienced harassment based on ethnicity or skin color. And we're doing that very intentionally. These are reports of things that we are very concerned about that have been brought up. And so if we don't ask, I don't think that we're doing we're not following our responsibility. We are also asking questions about the presence of disordered eating. Those actually are embedded in the Search Institute survey, so we don't have to add questions into the addendum. There are questions that we feel will hit on that topic, and we'll be able to weigh the responses and see trends tracking back. We don't know how to feel about this coming survey because of the times that we've been through. The last survey was just the fall before the pandemic hit, so we don't know what this is going to show. And so there's I can tell you some apprehension about what it may demonstrate. Again, underlies the importance that we are making sure students feel good and safe about engaging in this survey. So hats off to you two. Good job. And continuing to carry the conversation about sexual assault and sexual harassment at the school. Darian, I just blanked on your friend's name. I'm so sorry. From that was with you at that conversation.
Matt Rossi, great kid.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah, you guys did a great job. And I think evidence of how hard the conversation is to have, inviting other male teenagers into that space could be very intimidating. And so, we have obviously a lot of work to do. That's one example of an area where we are trying to encourage and empower and enable that conversation as much as we can as an agency, and have other things going on as well to help move that conversation along, make the high school feel and be safer for everybody. That was my tack on to the student report.
It's a good tack on. Thank you, guys. That was a very informative report, and I appreciate it. I know we all do. Scott, we're up to the director's report. I'll turn it over.
What do you know? I think we're doing okay for time. I do have some very important things to speak with everyone about tonight, and just kind of to add on in a way some of the things that David brought up at the top of the meeting. So attendance of the board, our board members to events. Now, you all volunteer to be a part of our board, and I can't tell you how grateful I am and our staff is to have you here, and your support through these meetings and anything else that you do in addition to that. And many of you have supported our programs and our staffing, and and some of you used our programming outside of your involvement of the board. Again, appreciate that, because that's why we're here. When we speak about showing up to events, it's more it's more obvious in the absence of board support at events. So it's, for me and for our staff, it's not so much having a number there, it's having some representation. So like when we do something, if it's one or two people there and that I can say, or say, somebody within the community or in the town government can see, and I can say that, it was supported by our board through their direct participation, that matters. When I do my budget presentations in the wintertime, having 4 or 5 people behind me matters. That's one where maybe 1 or 2 is not as good as having a number if we can, assuming we're in person again someday. And I would just say, I know you're all busy. That movie, so Finding Hope, the presentation that was put on by Demand Zero, and one of which we were one of two co-sponsors, was a really impactful movie about opioid abuse and how it's looking in our community. And it was the premiere of a short movie that we want to bring into the school system, but also a panel that included an FBI, someone representative from the FBI, the DEA, our local police, as well as Catherine, and also a member from the substance abuse treatment community. And really that discussion was really deep, and, spoke to the issue of opioids and really what is now evolving into a problem of counterfeit pills. So I'm just going to really give you the short version of this. With a lot of the crackdowns now and the writing of prescriptions for opioids, as well as other substances that are abused like stimulants, there's it's still far from perfect, but it's harder for those drugs to get into the community. And so the black market has really done what the black market always does, which is really to evolve itself and its practices and getting more pills, getting more people hooked, making more money. That's what they do. The issue now, is they're counterfeit pills, or you also hear the term pressed pills. The problem with these is that they're not pills that are made of the substances in which they are identified as. So these are pills that look like an Adderall pill or, an Oxycontin pill that are made from things sometimes that are almost 100% fentanyl. And in some cases, you could have a teenager that thinks he's taking his friend's Adderall, who is now taking a pill that was purchased online and is counterfeit and could be lethal. And so we are trying and working with the substance abuse community to bring more awareness around this issue. Now, it's not one that, as you look in the whole plethora of issues that we're trying to address, that we feel like we can just take on ourselves. And so we really are relying on other community agencies and organizations to really carry the flag. But we have to be behind them and partner with them in every opportunity that we have. And it's not an issue that we can just easily ignore, because the number may seem smaller in a way. So we're really glad in this case to partner with Demand Zero, because they were producing the movie, they were doing this event, and we were providing a lot of support and feedback and input behind the scenes, and then showing up on the day of the event. And it was a really nice Saturday. So if you all couldn't make it to something on a nice Saturday because you were at your kid's soccer game or something else, that's perfectly understandable. I'm expressing to you my hope, and that maybe this is an internal board conversation where there's events, and then maybe there's discussion among board members about who may show up, and hopefully that happens very naturally, because we're doing something that one or two of you can naturally go to, and maybe you have a natural interest in. But if not, if maybe people can talk and figure out who might be able to attend something that we're doing, and where we're bringing attention to something within the community and inviting you to go along. And so the two things actually that are on the calendar now, one that I did put on the agenda, and that's our trunk or treat event that happens always on Halloween. So 4 to 6 p.m. on the 31st, which happens to be a Sunday. I am sorry for all our fellow football viewers. Sunday afternoons is not a time that I want to be working or doing anything other than watching football, preferably with my fireplace. But I'll be on the green. We'll be on the green. It's really it's one of the more fun things that we'll do. That and the parade, is always tends to be a really good time. Would welcome you to all come out. And so I'm going to dovetail into this next piece that is important for you to hear. As I'm asking you all to think deeply about your involvement with us and hopefully get more involved as time goes on, I want you to know that we're listening to you. Over the summer, I invited the board at the tail end of last academic year and going to the summer, brought up the possibility of doing a couple of focus groups that really, hopefully dug into, with the intention of digging into like what information you all want, what helps you to know about what we're doing. I had a couple of board members last year that approached me and really gave me some really good feedback about, questioning about like what to what degree was our reach and how well were we doing it and how do we know, which are very relevant and important questions for a board to ask the director of the department. I'm going to share with you the outline of the 2 focus groups I had, and just share with you, and I'll go through it quick because I know it's late and we're all probably getting short on brain cells at this point. Let me see if I can share my screen here.
Scott, while you're doing that, you said there were 2 events, and you mentioned trunk or treat.
Oh, I'm sorry. I told you.
Because if we don't show up at this one,
the other one is the Pride. Yeah, the other one is the Pride Fest on Saturday that was previously announced. Thank you. And those are the 2 events we are directly involved in. So sharing with you our board summer focus groups, and Andrew is going to be mad at me for sharing this direct feedback because she felt bad after giving some of this to me. So the first one we did was in July. You'll see who was present for that. And the feedback at that time, there was a feeling, and I think this kind of directly goes to that director's report that you all get, that there's just a lot going on in that director's report. The abbreviations not being clear, really not a lot of insight or context or meaning behind some of the numbers. Missing before and after measures like goals and targets, and information sometimes missing context, and no story coming across. And so like, and the director's report, I adopted that, or just continued that same format when I became director. And it's just kind of funny because my assumption was always that, these were numbers that you all could understand and needed to know in terms of what we were doing. And over time, we started to change things, but this was very not surprising to me, and also very clear to hear it in this way. And I didn't feel criticized or needing to defend. I mean, these are jumbled numbers that we use for a lot of different purposes. The director's report are numbers that we're tracking for different reasons throughout the year, and just sharing them in this format. So we know the numbers are there. We know we're doing the work. And if it's not coming across to the board, then likely we're not doing a good job of getting it across to the public. And we got to do better. So there were some suggestions that came out of this particular meeting, to look at what other YSBs do for this particular, and communicating to any boards that they have or to the communities. Clean up what the abbreviations mean. There was this kind of notion, I think actually this first came up from Sarah Snyder, the kind of a question of how can we define or track the number of interactions that we have for each student. So in thinking about touches, and that's obviously not a term that we would use in describing data, but needing to come up with a way that we could better quantify some of the ways in which we interact with youth. And that's tough because, if you just break it down to like a basic definition, are we talking about a 15-minute interaction or more? Is that something that is of more value if it's done, or counted, like if we're doing a presentation in a health class, or to a larger, we will sometimes be a part of larger assemblies. So like, is that, we could say that we're interacting with every student at the school at certain points, but how does that measure, or what is that? How do we know that is in some way impactful? So it's not just as easy as counting up numbers in a way, because of, as you just probably heard from Aaron and Taylor, there's a lot of different ways in which we interact with our youth and our community. So the need for prioritizing our focus, or this was David's terms, like kind of thinking about things in terms of buckets and how we're hitting on them, and reorganizing the data. So that meeting followed up with a little smaller meeting. It was just David and Andrea for the second one in August. A lot of the same feedback, although we built on some topics. looking at some key stats from some of our divisions, such as our clinic, our prevention and social services, counting up like numbers of interventions and ways that we define them, not to be redundant, but some of the same things, and really kind of coming up with a demonstration of how hard we're working in an attempt to quantify that better. David, who loves charts and graphs, was big on charts and graphs. And I am too. Again, like this is, something that we really want to do. And I'll talk about like where we're going in a second, but again, how we might define numbers and reach, and looking at ways to aggregate data under certain definitions, including some kind of measure of impact. So I'll stop sharing. We continued our conversations internally about what we were doing with that input. And did you all get a chance to look at your director's report tonight before you came in here? You all should be saying yes, because you read the director's report every time before a meeting. I know you do. In case you don't, or in case you just didn't get to it tonight, the front of the director's report looks like this. And I don't know, I didn't bring this up, so it'd be hard for me to screen share it. But if you have a chance, open up this doc after the meeting. So what you have behind this cover page is still a lot of the same director's report that we've had in the past. So my pledge to you, and we have to be able to do this over time. We can't just make all the changes quickly because we're doing other things. We need the raw data in the director's report for other purposes. So we're going to continue to count group participation, numbers of people that are involved in things in a way in which very similar to what we had before. What we're going to change is to give you headings and explanations of the numbers, so you all know, even if you haven't thought of a program or you weren't sure about something we were doing, you'd be able to find it a little bit easier in all of those numbers. The front page is really, so it's entitled Stats to Tell a Story. So each month we're going to highlight 3 recent programs that demonstrate our role and value within the community. And we're going to use probably the same types of descriptors or adjectives over the course of the year, but they're not always going to be the same. So we want to be able to say something about our impact. So here in this front corner, you're going to see impact. And this time we're highlighting our sociable support group. So that was something that we felt had a higher impact without necessarily a big number. So that was, yeah.
Do you want me to try and share that?
Yeah. Can you?
I think so. Let me try. Is it there?
There we go. All right. So scroll down a little bit.
Yep.
So you see our impact, so this is something that has not necessarily a number attached to it, but I think was a very impactful program for what it did. And this was what Taylor described, what she and Frankie Esposito had piloted over this past summer. Sociable support group, this was using the zones of regulation. That's the same curriculum and model that the school uses, and we were very intentional in using that. So there was a similar model of social support and learning social skills. Coming off of last year, there was a need that was identified from the school system, communicated to us, and why we began with these. We were, I think, foreseeing a much bigger response. And typically what you find when you're planning for a big response, especially when you're piloting something, it turns out, that parents are also looking for summer camps and other things. So you're competing with a lot of other opportunities. And even though with all of that, we still managed to run groups, 10 students altogether with a range of 5 to 18. So for the example here, that was what we felt demonstrated an area where we had great impact. So scrolling down a little bit more, one that we felt was reach. And reach we're going to define more as a program that has maybe a higher number that spread out a little deeper into the community in a way. So we're highlighting for the summer, our summer youth volunteers. So over 40 hours of community services in total throughout the summer was provided by these students, which was 51 students altogether that were involved in this. There was 20 projects, and in addition to that, they raised $501. I suppose we couldn't round down on that one, so $501 for the food pantry and the backpack program. So demonstrating a little bit more in terms of a higher number and reach. As the year goes on, if we do larger, larger numbers, like, so you might see QPR, for example, a number that as we get in, and our goal is to train every high schooler in QPR this year. You may see that number as we get more into that, reflected in an area like this going forward. And down below, so this is an area, so vital meaning something that was really important or critical in a particular area. So this could be something very, in terms of a number, very small, but also something that we felt was critical for the community. And we identified our Be Cool for School program. That was money we took from the Recovery Act and turned it into gift cards for back to school clothing, as well as haircuts. We got we got an area barber and a salon, and not so they would take the hit. We approached them and said, how much would it cost for us to do this, because we had the recovery money, and we were able to present that out into the community, and we were able to help 70 youth with that particular program, of which 55 were also eligible for our income-based financial assistance through our back to school programming. So they got backpacks as well as gift cards that we would normally give through social services. So what I'm trying to tell you is that we're listening to you and trying to get you the information that you need, so you can better understand us and hopefully better interact with us. Not shy to hear feedback or get questions from people, even if you feel like it's something we're missing or not doing. If you ever approach me with something that's critical and I appear defensive, I do feel very proud and feel very good about what we're doing. So it's confidence, but not arrogance. We can't always do everything we want to do, and we do fall short sometimes. So I need to hear that. We need to hear that. And the job is always the job. We are here to support our community, so we need your help with that. All right, so I can see everybody. Could you just stop sharing, Molly? Questions, reaction, Beth?
I think it looks great. Anything with pictures and colors is that much less intimidating. Do you think that the impact, reach, vital, I love those columns. Are those aren't really the buckets you're talking about, right? In terms of
so it's a way to describe. So I think because it's not just one thing, I don't know that our value is just in a sheer number of students or youth that will train, right? So it's, to me, the buckets became ways in which we're engaging in the community, ways in which we're doing our work. The buckets also you could look at in terms of, like, we have our prevention bucket and our clinic
That's
bucket.
more what I was thinking of, the buckets. But I love these threads. Those are really, to me, meaningful and understandable words that also demonstrate value and importance. Well, just impact. And I love that. And I think long-term, to have a pile of all the impact and a pile of all the reach and a pile of all the vital down the road, all of a sudden makes the conversation at the board meeting, for your budget almost has written itself with some of that. Yeah.
And a lot of what we want to do is be able to move things. So you'll see the director's report. We want to move those things into our webpage. And you'll see in the coming months, some of our posts will very intentionally, highlight something and then drive it back. There'll be a link back to our webpage. So driving some traffic back that way, because the webpage really is something we have to continue to pay attention to and approve and utilize, where, I think in the past have underutilized that.
I hope you'll share that colorful page on social media.
Yeah, it may come up we talked about that. It might be too small. So because most people, when they look at Facebook, which is what we're primarily on, they do it on their phones. So what we may do is create again, that would be one where we create a link. So this could be on our webpage. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But yeah, don't save it just for us. Get it.
Yeah. Agreed. That's the idea. Any other questions or thoughts on this?
Just looking at the director's report visually, it's much for July and August. It's much easier to read because of the spatial divisions and the space around the sections. It's a lot less overwhelming, and you can really focus on each section much better.
Thank you. And some of that's because that's the beginning of our fiscal year. So, some of them you'll see we've kept some of the headings without really any numbers, because those are programs, most of which would, don't start until the school gets going. But glad that is the idea, is to get that cleaned up. Thanks, Andrea.
Scott, I did try to look for the event you mentioned on this weekend. I couldn't find any reference to the fest. I can only find 2020 information. So maybe an email with details of, if it's possible. It may be on Facebook. I'm not a Facebook person, but I searched there and I didn't see anything at the top.
Yes, it's not an event that we are directly sponsoring, but we're participating in. Okay. And I know it's, I want to say, is it the Madison Diversity Club that does that? Beth, do you know? It has. I know for sure it's been on Facebook. Okay. But I can
that would be great.
The board.
Madison Diversity and Inclusion Committee.
Okay.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yep.
All right. Last but not least, two quick things. And again, thank you for everybody for hanging in there tonight. We're already talking about budget, and I've had some. You all need to know that I am going to be asking for additional funds for our programming, primarily around staffing and targeting our clinic area for need of, in some cases, enhancing the grade for 2 positions or all of our clinic positions that are licensed, looking at making Taylor full-time, full year, and hopefully a stipend that we can help to further reimburse people that supervise our interns or post-grads. Knowing that could be a price tag of an additional request in total between $50,000 to $60,000. I need to be very clear about the need, as well as where we might be able to help with some funding. As I've heard in the past, the question of why isn't the school system helping us to fund some of these things? I did reach out and start a conversation with Dr. Cook, the superintendent, and we'll be bringing it up again with Peggy Lyons. And we'll have to be having conversations, with our board of selectmen, as well as board of finance liaisons. So you all need to know that that's coming. I can't be shy about it, and I can't wait till we're into the middle of the budget season to start bringing these things up. BOE tends to get ahead of the board of selectmen on the school side, tends to get faster at budgeting than the town side. And so I need to start talking about this stuff now. And that's what I'm doing. And last but not least, so the Academy project, if any of you happen to be on this morning, I think Scott's probably off the call now. So the Board of Selectmen met this morning, and there was the beginning of the conversation for what the renovations might look like. That would include Youth and Family Services in the renovated community center. I would describe the conversation that went on in the Board of Selectmen as fairly contentious, in part members of BOS speaking to the process that's sort of unfolded thus far, with that being a community center. I'll tell you, so I was asked just to talk about, the youth and family being included in this. And I'm going to be very honest, I feel very positive about our potential being in that building or in that plan, because it meets our needs for our programming. And that's what I spoke to this morning. And, there was questions about the process, and that building has certainly garnered its share of controversy over the years. So it's really just, that's also coming up. So for me, it was a moment of, I told you so. I didn't want to be in the middle of this to begin with. And we need to be, because it's an opportunity for us. So I just think it's important for you all to be aware that we're in that conversation, and it's going to be, I think, we are now full into the election cycle. We are, less than a month away from voting on Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, BOE. So my guess is the community center is probably going to come up in conversations or in debates. And just know that, at least as far as we're concerned, we are glad to be a part of a renovated community center and a repurpose and a reimagination of that building. And that said, the town gets to choose. It's certainly a hefty price tag. I would invite you all to be as informed as you can about this, and certainly, vote your own mind and opinion on it. But wanted you to know that that was kind of how we're feeling about being included in the project. Any questions on that? All right, I'm done. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. We do not have a liaison report tonight, so we'll skip that. We'll move on to chairperson comments. I'm going to use my chairperson comments to put in a plug for Andrea's housing plan survey. As many of you know, Andrea's on the ad hoc affordable housing committee, and there is a survey on the Madison website. I'm going to drop a link into the chat, and if you want, you can click on that link, and that should take you to a survey. And Andrea, if you want to say a word or two, you're certainly welcome to. You're also welcome to say I've handled it for you, and that's okay too.
Well, thank you. I just want to mention that deadline is the 15th. So I urge everyone to please fill out the survey. And there are other things coming up, such as educational forums where you can go and ask questions, and there will be different panels, some developers coming to speak. So there'll be a lot going on up ahead. But before the report has to be written by June.
Okay, thank you. And thank you to Beth. I think she put a link into the group for the Pride Fest for this weekend, although maybe I have to log on in order to see details. I still can't see details, but I'll play with that one later. Anybody else have any comments? That's the time where we're at open discussion. Comments, questions, feedback.
I just got one, David. I'm wondering if, based on the conversation tonight, and your reasoning for missing an event is very much like my reasoning for missing some events. I completely forget about the events. So I'm wondering if we might be able to use like what they use in the sports teams when they do sign up genius or something, where maybe in the beginning of the year when we're first meeting as a board, we can get that link where we can actually sign up for some events that will remind us of those events, before it's like ridiculously late to attend those events. Just something, because Scott, I got to be honest with you, I would attend almost every event that Madison Youth and Family Services puts forth, but there's life that gets in the way. And, like the day of the event, just for myself, for the movie, I was at a concert. So I was at the concert. I knew about the event, but there was nothing I could do about it. So, but if I could have signed up ahead of time for an event that was on my calendar, maybe I wouldn't have purchased the tickets for the con. You know what I mean? So it's just a mind explosion sometimes. Too much information. Yeah.
Oh, God,
And-
everybody's too busy. And
Yeah.
I totally get that. I do. And I hope that you all hear me saying that. I understand totally.
Yeah, but it's not even an excuse, Scott. I'm just saying, if there was a reminder system sometimes, it would be easier to remember what we were going to do. Because, you know, I can't speak for other board members, but I'm not on just one board.
Yeah.
I'm on multiple boards with multiple
Right.
emails, multiple dates, and sometimes, that was my bad, you know. And if I had that little reminder a week ahead,
Yeah.
that's all.
I think so. One idea that we had was maybe to send out reminders of things. So you might see us be a little more active in that way. So that you might get an email reminder of an event that's coming up. But that said, that wouldn't tell you if, you know, if there was an event maybe that you could make or couldn't make, or was someone else from the board able to make that. And I think that's what I'm asking is for the board to communicate among board members around and having, and maybe I think that's really a very interesting idea. You know, if there's just a central place where you all can go and see if people are able to make it and communicate with each other as to, you know, covering some of these things. There's not tons of them. You know, there are months that go by that we don't have anything specific, you know, that we're doing.
That would be that's the point I'm speaking to,
Yeah.
is the gaps in time you forget.
Yep.
But, you know, last week we got an alert on our phones, the reminder that we had to make cookies for the football team. So I couldn't forget.
It's so much
because
better than we are.
Yeah, it was right on my phone, you know, like, hey, you need to make cookies for Thursday. And it's like, that's right, I have to make cookies, you know. So at least I had an idea that I had a responsibility in 2 days. Whereas with some of these events, unless we remember or see an email reminder, sometimes we just lose the date. For me, that's all. So
right.
Anyway, thank you.
Let the minutes reflect that Rob is going to make cookies for all of us.
Yeah, he said it. He said it's on YouTube.
1 to 5 on the green, thanks to Beth's information. I just, you know, I'm a boomer, so I don't know how to use Facebook, but I'm getting better. Anything else? Scott, great point. I mean, Rob, great point. And let's give it some thought and see if we can come up with a way to handle this. Maybe we can think about it offline a little bit and come up with a way to do that. This doesn't burden the folks at MYFS, but also helps us kind of manage our multiple commitments that we have. All right, hearing no other business and having made it through the agenda, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Have a great night.
Everyone. Thanks, Scott, David.
Yeah.
Good night.
Good night.
Oh, by the way, guys, thank you so much for putting on the trick or trunk things. Those things literally were my childhood, and I didn't even realize that you guys put them on. So thank you for that.